Imagine standing at the very edge of existence. The air is thin, cold, and silent, stripped of the comforting noises of the living world. Before you stretches a structure that defies the laws of physics, a bridge spanning a terrifying, infinite abyss. In the ancient Persian mind, this was not a metaphor. It was the Chinvat Bridge, the bridge of the Requiter, the final and absolute test that every soul was destined to face 4 days after death. For thousands of years, long before the cathedrals of Europe rose or the steepled churches of the Americas were built, the faithful of the Iranian plateau looked toward the horizon with a specific, trembling anticipation. They knew that the journey did not end with the grave. The grave was merely the waiting room for this singular, harrowing crossing. The drama of this moment is captured with startling clarity in the Zoroastrian texts, particularly the Vendidad. The soul does not walk this bridge alone. As you step onto the span, you are met by a figure walking toward you from the other side. This is not a judge, nor a deity, nor a demon. It is something far more intimate and terrifying. It is the Dina. It is your own conscience, your own religious vision, externalized and given form. The texts describe this encounter with brutal honesty. For the righteous, those who cultivated truth, charity, and purity, the Dina appears as a beautiful maiden, radiant and fragrant, the physical embodiment of every kind word and noble deed performed in life. She welcomes the soul, guiding it across the Chinvat, which, for the just, widens into a broad, comfortable avenue, spanning the darkness like a highway of light. But for the deceitful, the experience is inverted. The Dina appears as a withered, terrifying hag, a grotesque mirror reflecting a lifetime of lies, cruelty, and neglect. And the bridge itself reacts to the moral weight of the traveler. For the wicked, the Chinvat does not widen. It turns on its side, becoming as narrow as the edge of a razor. The soul, unbalanced by the weight of its own corruption, falters. There is no angry God pushing them. There is only the physics of their own spirit. They fall, plunging into the house of lies, a cold, dark realm of stagnation. This was a revolutionary shift in human thought. To understand why, we must look at the neighbors of the ancient Persians. In the neighboring civilizations of Mesopotamia, among the Babylonians and Assyrians, death was a bleak, dusty affair. The underworld was the land of no return, a gray, subterranean cavern where kings and slaves alike ate dust and lived in shadows. Morality had little to do with it. Death was simply the battery running out. But here, in the fire temples of Persia, a different signal was being broadcast. The afterlife was not a neutral fade to black. It was a high-stakes moral courtroom where the verdict was written in the geometry of a bridge. This idea that what we do matters eternally, that the universe itself has a moral structure, was a fire that would eventually spread west, igniting the lamps of faiths that had not yet even been born. The Chinvat Bridge was the first time humanity truly stared into the abyss and realized that the abyss was staring back, measuring us. History often turns on the hinge of a single improbable event. In 539 BCE, that event was the fall of Babylon. The great city, seemingly impregnable, opened its gates to a new conqueror from the east, Cyrus the Great, the architect of the Persian Empire. For the Jewish exiles living in captivity by the waters of Babylon, this was not just a geopolitical shift, it was a miracle. Cyrus was unlike any king they had known. He did not crush their altars or burn their texts. Instead, he issued a decree allowing them to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. But the people who returned were not the same as those who had left. They carried with them more than just the permission of the king. They carried the invisible, permeating influence of Persian thought. It is in the centuries following this liberation, the Second Temple period, that we see a profound metamorphosis in Jewish writings. Before the exile, the Hebrew scriptures spoke of Sheol, a concept strikingly similar to the Mesopotamian gray underworld. It was a place of silence, where the praise of God ceased. There was no distinct heaven for the righteous or hell for the wicked. But as the scribes interacted with the Persian administration, as they walked the streets of cities where the Magi tended the sacred fires, the theological landscape began to change. We start to see the emergence of a structured cosmos in texts like the Book of Daniel and the later apocalyptic literature. Suddenly, the stage is crowded. We begin to see hierarchies of angels with specific names and functions, mirroring the Amesha Spentas, the holy immortals of Zoroastrianism. We see the rise of a distinct adversary figure, a personification of evil that opposes the will of God, echoing the Persian duality of Ahura Mazda, the wise lord, and Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit. This was the cosmic war worldview. It offered a compelling solution to a problem that strictly monotheistic frameworks struggled with, the problem of evil. If God is good and all-powerful, why do the righteous suffer? The Persian answer was that the world is currently a battlefield. We are living in a time of mixture where the forces of light and darkness are locked in combat, and every human action tips the scales. This was not a simple case of plagiarism or theft. It was a deep, centuries-long theological dialogue. The Jewish scribes did not blindly copy. They adapted and refined these ideas, weaving them into their own covenantal history. They took the Persian intuition that history has a direction, that it is moving toward a final resolution, and merged it with their prophetic tradition. The result was a new kind of hope. Justice would not just happen in the here and now, which was often disappointing. It would happen on a cosmic scale. The universe was no longer a cycle of nature repeating endlessly. It was a story with a beginning, a middle, and a definitive end. This linear view of time, born in the dialogue between Jerusalem and Persepolis, became the bedrock of Western consciousness. If the history of the world is a story, how does it end? In our modern popular culture, apocalypse has come to mean destruction, zombies, nuclear winter, the collapse of civilization. But the Zoroastrian script for the finale, known as Frashokereti, translates to something far more beautiful, the making wonderful. It is a vision not of annihilation, but of renovation. The ancient Persians believed that the physical world was good, created by the wise Lord, and that its current corrupted state was a temporary infection by the destructive spirit. Therefore, the goal was not to escape the world, but to heal it. And the mechanism for this healing brings us back to that terrifying element of judgment, but with a surprising twist. The texts prophesy a final ordeal that involves the entire earth. A river of molten metal will flow across the land, and every resurrected soul must pass through it. This sounds like the ultimate nightmare of damnation, yet the experience is subjective. To the righteous, those whose spirits are aligned with truth, the liquid fire will feel like a bath of warm milk, gentle, cleansing, and soothing. But to the wicked, it will burn. Crucially, however, even this burning is not the sadism of an angry deity. It is a purgative process. The metal burns away the corruption, the lies, and the spiritual decay, leaving the soul pure. In many interpretations of Zoroastrian theology, hell is not eternal. It is a temporary state of correction. Once the evil is burned away, even the wicked are restored to a pristine state. This leads to the ultimate victory of Ahura Mazda, a universe where everything is perfect, where death and old age are no more, and where humanity lives in harmony with the Creator. This concept of universal reconciliation, that eventually all things will be made right, is a powerful undercurrent that would resurface in various forms of mysticism and theology throughout the ages. It frames evil not as a rival kingdom that will exist forever, but as a shadow that flees when the lights are fully turned on. It is an optimistic eschatology that places a heavy responsibility on the present moment. Because the world is being renovated, human beings are called to be humkars, or co-workers with the divine. Every act of kindness, every truth spoken, and every instance of charity is a contribution to the Frashokereti. It pushes the world 1 inch closer to its perfected state. The famous Zoroastrian mantra, good thoughts, good words, good deeds, is not just a rulebook for good manners, it is a construction manual for paradise. The legacy of this Persian blueprint is the conviction that our actions have cosmic weight. We are not passive observers waiting for the end of the world. We are the architects of the world to come, building the bridge to a perfected future, one good thought at a time. The fire is not just waiting at the end of time, it is in our hands, ready to forge something wonderful.